affidavit. Okay, so you'd have an affidavit, and the affidavit would create the deed, and you would hold all the rights, all the titles, everything. And all this was documented, and these documents would have seals of the house. They would have coat of arms, they'd have flags on it, all this sort of stuff. Great Fire of London comes along, burns all of this evidence. Everyone is lost at sea. They come back on land because they all went out onto the Thames to escape the fire. They came back, and at that point, the system was changed. So instead of having property, it switched to real estate. So instead of property, it's now estate. You're the holder. You're the holder in due course. The document is on its course. So you're the holder in due course, and that means is when you pass on, you can give it to your children, but it's the king's estate, isn't it? And it's a fee simple title. You've got to pay the fee. That is where the tax comes into play, because you agreed, because you bought the title. You see, that is how tax is contractual, because you chose to buy it. There's the contract. You might not have understood it, but that's how they trap you. Leasehold is slightly different. You can hold it, but you can hold it for a certain amount of time, normally 99 years, and then it goes back to the king. So that's the difference between freehold and leasehold. Now you understand what's going on. You understand where this tax is coming from and how they can hit you with this inheritance tax, because you're not the owner of the land. You're holding a title, which is a fee simple title of the king's estate. Now you know what the game is. We can play the game, can't we? And this is where it gets fun. So once you understand contract law, which is quite simple to understand, one of the main things within contracts is informed consent. Right? If there is no informed consent, the contract is null and void. That means the title is null and void. You were tricked. You were not given full disclosure. Right? There was no meeting of the minds. You did not sit down with someone and have a contract with them. So that means all this title stuff is now becoming extremely weak. There's not much power. Also, you've got to ask yourself, hang on, is it actually the king we're talking about now? No, it isn't. When you do some research, and you've got to go back in history, you've got to understand what's going on. The people who run this game do believe in God, all right? And they understand that they cannot go against God's will. Now, you don't have to be religious. I'm not trying to preach you believe in God or anything. I'm just explaining what they believe. So the king knew this. The king himself thought, you know what, yeah, I can't go against God. God gave dominion of the planet to man the species, right? And each man has the right to have a portion of the earth for his dominion. It's normally accepted 10 acres. That's what the Vatican, that's how the Vatican actually creates your estate, but we'll get into that later. But typically it's 10 acres, so a man is allowed to have his dominion, he's allowed to have his parcel of land, 10 acres, that's his, no one can trespass, he has law on that land. You cannot go against God, and the king knew this. So the king went, okay, can't actually go against God, I can't actually take all the land for myself, because God would be angry and he'll strike me with a thunderbolt and all the rest of it. So he think, right, I'm going to do this legally. Anything legal is the opposite of law. If two people agree in a contract, it becomes legal and it's got nothing to do with law. So if two people agree, like say for example, one person wants to be a slave and the other person wants to be the master, if those two people agree and write it down, God can't get angry, because those two people decided to do that. It's free will. And God says, well, okay, it's free will. If someone wants to be a slave or someone wants to be a master, they've agreed, I can't get involved. So the king went, okay, I can't scoop up all the land for myself, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my kingdom. And I'm going to do a survey. This is how it works. A survey. What's that? Survey is all you can see, right? So he looks around the land, he sees all the trees and the mountains and all the rest of it, and then what he does is he does a little bit of a dirty trick, and he puts what he sees and he puts it into paper. And turns it into legal. It's two-dimensional at that point. It's fictitious. He's just writing it down. Then what he'll do is says, right, okay, that's my kingdom, all that I can see is in there. Then he'll say to you, are you one of my people? Now you've got to be careful of the word people. People means chattel, right? As a farmer, you'll know what chattel is. You can own the dogs, the cat, all the animals. You own them, and you can do what you want to them. A people is the same. Now, the way this works, to be a people, is, for example, if you consider yourself one of God's people, which is your choice, that means God has authority over you. Alright? Because you're saying I'm one of God's people. Fine. That means God has authority over you. What the church will normally do is slide in scripture, and the church will say, well, we speak for God, so now you've got to do what the church says. And that's one of the religious scams. That's how they get you, right? Yeah. The king does the same thing. So the king, he can put himself in the God position, and he says to you, you are my people. If you accept that, you're now under the authority of the king. You're now living upon his land. You're now subject to the king. Obviously, subject to the king means you've got to follow his rules. That's his rules. That is normally referred to as crown law or common law. So you've got to be very careful of common law, because there's a lot of people getting caught up in this and going into court saying, I'm operating under common law, and the judge is going to laugh at you and say, okay, that makes you a people, that makes you a subject to the king, you better go back being a serf then, because you shouldn't be in this court. Yeah? So yeah, so crown law, common law is under the rule of the king. So being a people makes you a slave to a certain jurisdiction. Again, religious people under God, king is subject. So you've got to understand that. So you do not want to be a people. So what the king does is he creates his kingdom. He will say, are you one of my people? You say yes, okay, you're subject to it now. Then what he'll do is sell you titles within his estate. That's how they do it. At this point, he's not violating anything. He's not violating law. He's not going against God, because you said yes to this. Right? Remember that God says you've got free will. You can choose what you want to do. So you consented. Nothing God can do. Now, fast forward to today, things are very, very different. This is where flags come into play. And we were talking about this. I know you had to go, but we were talking about this once you left. Flags. You've got to understand what is called flag etiquette. Okay? So I've got flag etiquette. So a flag is not just a piece of cloth. It's not just pretty colours. It has a meaning, right? So when you see a flag, it's telling you the language that's being used, the dictionary that's being used, the authority of the flag. It's telling you a whole load of things that you do not understand. Now, one of the things about a flag that most people do not realise is a flag has to have a name attached for it to have legal standing. You've probably heard of this all the time, legal standing, legal standing. And you go, what does legal standing mean? Legal standing, legal means contract, as we spoke about earlier. Standing literally means a man standing, a living, breathing man or woman standing, who can speak his word, meaning that is his law. Okay? If you're dead, you're not standing. You have no law once you're dead. Once you're alive, you have standing. So for a flag to have legal standing, there has to be a man or a woman whose word is the law of the flag. Does everyone understand that? So, Union Jack. Who owns it? You don't know his name. You don't know his name. The thing is the Union Jack isn't owned by anybody anymore. The Union Jack has become a corporate logo. Just like McDonald's. You see the McDonald's M? Mm-hmm. Can you use the McDonald's M on any of your paperwork? No. You can't do that, because the McDonald's will say, what the hell are you doing? You're using the McDonald's flag, aren't you? We're going to sue you into oblivion. Now what this UK corporation, and by the way the UK is a corporation just the same as McDonald's, what they've done is they've created the Union Jack, or they've taken it, which is a corporate logo, and if you use that Union Jack on your land, on your paperwork, and you say we're British farmers, the UK corporation will go, okay, fine, not a problem. Well, you're paying tax then, aren't you? Because you've agreed, you contracted using their flag. Now what people have got to do is you've got to stop waving another man's flag. You're supposed to have your own. So you should have your own flag, which is supported by your name, which is your family name, and alongside the flag you should have other things like your own coat of arms. So the coat of arms is a shield, it's always a shield, and that is telling people back off. It's a shield. Paperwork today is an extension of the sword and the shield. And it's all to do with the right hand. The reason why we shake hands is because I'm saying to you, I am without sword. I have not got my sword. I am here in peace. I've not drawn it. I have not got my sword. And if you say, yes, okay, you're equal, want peace, you'll offer your hand, no sword, we shake hands. Peace. The right hand of the man is the justice giver. That's what the shield is all about. The shield is saying, back off. It's saying, do not trespass upon my documents. Do not trespass upon my land, because otherwise the sword is coming out. That's why you have a coat of arms. So it's a symbol to tell other men, back off, and it should be respected. Upon that coat of arms, you'll also have a seal. So the way it works is, obviously you have an autograph, so your name, you'll sign it. That will charge a document. A document unsigned is literally toilet paper. It has no legal standing because it's not signed. Once you sign it, boom, you've charged the document. You put your name to that. That document now has meaning. What you can also do is you can endorse it with your seal. Your seal represents your house, coat of arms, and that's an endorsement, so the seal is on it. So the way it used to work is, you probably heard of a scroll. So in the olden days, you probably understand or probably heard of the four corners rule. So the four corners rule means everything written within the four corners of the paper is the contract. Nothing outside exists and nothing else can get involved. So nothing else can get into the contract. Four corners rule. In the olden days, that was a scroll. So you'd hire a scribe. A scribe would write it out for you on one piece of paper. You would then sign it. You've charged the document. It would then be rolled up, and then a wax seal would be placed upon it, and that's when you would get your seal of the house, usually on your ring, and you would seal it. Then you would send it to whoever, usually with the right hand. When the person receives it, they would see the seal and realise it's from you. Then they've got a choice. Do they want to open it or do they want to return it? If they break the seal, they've accepted. And then they can read it, and then they'll see you signed it, so it is genuine from you. All of this still operates today, but the average person doesn't understand any of this. Now the good news, again, is all the documentations that you are receiving today are without name, without signature, and without seal. How many times have you received a document in the post and it says, yours sincerely, legal team?
All the time.
Okay, so straight away I already know it's got no legal standing, has it? Who the hell's legal team? Is it a bloke called legal team? No. It's a nondescript legal term. It has no meaning. Can you imagine if people realised that bit? All of you, all the farmers just realised that simple little thing, that getting documents in the post with no signature means it has no legal standing, which means it's toilet paper. That's the end of the game, isn't it? What if all the farmers just went, okay, bye, I'm not even going to read it because there's no name. Because the first thing you should do when you get a document in the post is look for a signature and a name. If there's no name on it and there's no signature, you don't know who sent it. So you go, why am I reading it? I'm not even going to read it. I'm going to send it back and say send it back. So if all the farmers knew this, if all the truckers knew this, if all the businessmen knew this, this nightmare would be over within a day. So you've got to start understanding contract law. So this is basic contract law and it still exists today. The documents that you receive, you will receive in the post, and you'll get it in a windowed envelope. It's always in a windowed envelope, okay? That's telling you something. If it's a true envelope, it will be sealed completely. Okay, there'll be no window. It'll be completely sealed, and the address would be written on the envelope, and it should have a stamp of Royal Mail. Now you've got the Royal Mail Office, and you've got the Royal Mail Service. They're two separate things. The service is the postman delivering it. He's delivering. That's the service. Royal Mail Office is in fact a court. It is the highest court they have in the legal system. It's higher than the Supreme Court. There's no higher court than the Royal Mail. You cannot interfere in the mail. I think everybody understands this. If you interfere with the mail, you mess about with a postman, you're going to prison for 7 years. You shouldn't even open other people's mail. That is a serious thing. You should never ever mess with Royal Mail Office. So what we do is when we send our documents out, because we are doing it lawfully and legally, we will use complete envelopes. We will write on the envelope who we're sending it to, and we will use the Royal Mail stamp. That means it's now recorded in court. Once you send a document like that, the Royal Mail is saying that document has been delivered, even when it's still in your hand. So you go to the post office and you actually put it down and the post office receives it, it's considered delivered because the Royal Mail says so. So even if the other side says we never received it, I don't care. The Royal Mail says so. You can't go against it. We had a lady who got rid of a speeding ticket because of a stamp on this. Because she sent, and she did it correctly, she sent she got a speeding ticket, filled out the form, she sent it back in her own envelope. She wrote the police on the envelope, and she put a stamp on, Queen's Head stamp, sent it to the police. For some unknown reason, it got returned. So we don't know why. It said something like insufficient fund, but the police should have accepted it anyway. So she got the envelope back and went, oh, okay, fair enough. And then the next thing she knew, she was getting someone to court because she hadn't filled in the document. Well, that's what the police said. Well, she took the envelope along to court and said, Your Honour, well, it didn't even get to the court because the prosecutor came in and spoke to the woman. She says, I understand that you're putting some evidence in today. She goes, yeah. And she says, can I see your evidence? She says, yeah, there you go. There's the stamp. And the prosecutor went, right, we're going to drop all charges. So it didn't even get to the court. So we had to go into the court and spoke to the judge, and the prosecutor just went straight to the judge, Your Honour, we're dropping all charges. We will not be taking it any further than that. Thank you very much. And she was not fined, and the woman walked away because of a stamp. Because Royal Mail said that it was indeed sent to the police. They couldn't fight against it. So you've got to understand the importance of mail and use it. So going back to windowed envelopes. If you receive a windowed envelope, that is internal corporate mail. And what it's doing is you'll get a window and your name and address will be on the inside of the envelope. Yeah. And what they're doing a little bit of a dirty trick. They're trying to bypass the seal that I spoke about earlier. So, like I said before, even if they did put a stamp on there, which most companies do not, most companies will use a franking machine, so there's no stamp, they're just paying for the service. And you've got to say, why would they do that? If this was a legitimate document, why would you not put a stamp on it? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's because they're trying to deceive you. And then on the back of the envelope, you'll see the return address, and what will it say? P.O. Box. This is telling you, this is fraudulent. P.O. Box is non-contractual. And you go, well, this can't be contractual then. Why are you sending me a document that's non-contractual when the return address is a P.O. Box? So you're being scammed. So the reason you have a window there is so that you can look inside the envelope, which is outside the jurisdiction of the post office, and then you can decide whether or not you want to open it. And in their eyes, they've not done anything illegal or unlawful. So you open it up and you accept what's inside. It's a dirty trick. Now, I won't go too deep into the legalese side of things because you do have to learn how to read, because the average person, unfortunately, cannot read. You might be able to actually understand text written on a piece of paper, but you won't understand what is actually truly written. You won't understand the meaning behind the words. This is where the Sovereign Project comes in, because we're ready to teach you this. Okay. Now, I just want to make it absolutely clear, the Sovereign Project, we cannot interfere in commerce, so we can't do it for you. And we cannot get involved between you and the government, because the government will come after us. And rightly so, by the way, because the government's going to say to us, what's it got to do with you? And it doesn't have anything to do with us. So we can't do this. This is why the Sovereign Project, we cannot protest. If you protest, by the way, it means you're accepting the obligation of what you're protesting against. So you've already lost. If you petition what you've just done, you've accepted what you're petitioning against. You've already lost. Why do you think the government has set up a petition administrative body within the government? And they send out petitions, don't they? Why would they? Because they want you to contract. So if you sign a petition, you're agreeing to it. So if you protest against inheritance tax, you've lost. You've agreed to it. If you petition, you agree to it. If you protest, you should never protest. Protest again means that you've agreed to the obligation of the thing you're protesting against, right? All of these things you should never do. So I want to get this message out to the farmers. Please don't protest. Don't do that, because the government's loving it. That's what happened to the truckers. Look what happened to the truckers. They got the bank accounts seized. Didn't work very well for them. Don't do the same mistake. So you don't do any of this. Petitions and all that. No. You treat this as business. You treat this as a sovereign man, okay? This is what I would do. Don't worry, don't panic. As long as you learn this, you understand it, you will know that you were tricked. This is fraud on a massive scale. Now, we're not going to call it fraud. What we're going to call it as a insufficient instrument. We're going to use terms in commerce. So we're going to say there must have been a confusion in the contract. So what we should be doing is challenging the land registry. So once you've set your estate up, you can stake your claim, and all of this is quite complicated, but we are working on a remedy that we can offer to people. Okay, we're working with a group called the NAS Club, They're based in Ireland, and they've been working on this same thing for years. And we've already got people in Ireland that are claiming back their land, a few acres, and farmers that are doing this already. So there is a process. They create their estate, and then they can claim their land. The terminology that I'm going to use, you've probably heard of it anyway, because you've probably heard of stake your claim. You go, what does that mean? Well, it's an old way of how farmers and landowners used to do it. So the way you would do it, you probably heard of the rule of thumb. So in the olden days, before we had standardised measurements, you would use your thumb and you'd see a tree and you know all that. So you would do all that, you would plot out the land, okay, and once you'd done that, you'd stake in the corners of the land. Stake in your claim, that's what you do, right? So you'd do that, you would then do a notice, and you'd say, I am now intending, you would state your intentions, and I am intending to claim the land for myself. You would then go to the local village, it would go on the notice board, the town crier would come out, hear ye, and everybody would come out and see the latest news, and your notice would be on the notice board. And it will say, within 30 days I'm going to claim the land. If no one wants to challenge me, then that will be so. If no one challenges you, after 30 days, you will then claim the land, and you do that with affidavit. You would write an affidavit of property, you would claim the land for yourself, that's mine. So you've got your affidavit, you've sworn an oath to God that you now own that land, and God's happy, because not a problem, you've done that honourably. And now you can create your deed. Now this is a thing where people get confused with deeds. You're supposed to create your own deed, you're not supposed to be given it. You see, if someone gives you their deed, it's still their deed. So the way it works is, once you've done your affidavit, you do your deed, and in the olden days, you would take your deed down to the Hall of Records, you can look this up, and that deed, there would be a copy made, and it would be in a giant book, great big leather thing, and everybody's deed would be in there. So that would prove who was the rightful owner of said land. Now, what would happen is, if you wanted to sell the land, you would obviously have your affidavit, and go, there you go, and you'd have your deed, and you go, there you go, and you would sell that. That's a allodial title. You've probably heard of a allodial title. So a allodial title means you hold all rights, all titles, all licenses thereof, everything. There's no third party, no one else is involved. You have superior title, allodial title. That's in these documents. So you would sell it to someone else, he would take the documents, he would keep the documents, but then what he would do is make his own documents. So then he would then make his own affidavit that formally state forward, I hereby declare that I bought the land from Fred, I now own the land, there you go. And then once he's done his affidavit, what would he do? Create his deed. This is where landowners have forgotten this. You then create your deed, that's your brand new deed, based on your affidavit, from the sale. Then you take your brand new deed that you've created based on your affidavit down to the Hall of Records, and you go, right, I need that recording. So the sale would be recorded. So now you've done all that, Fred can't claim the land back, because you've got all this. It's on the Hall of Records, isn't it?
And the person to whom you sold it would have his shield, his coat of arms,
bingo,
etc.
Correct.
You're on the path.
That's right. He would have his estate. This entire system that we find ourselves in today regarding ownership, you have to have an estate to own something. Because the way it works, if you own something, I'm not talking about little things like this, but something of value, something, houses, cars, yachts, helicopters, maybe laptops, TVs, something of worth. I'm not bothered about trinkets. Anything with a serial number on it, anything of value. If you actually want to own it, and you want to be able to prove you own it, you have to have an estate, because the estate is the symbolism that's put on the document to say that is where it belongs. It's now in my estate, and it's protected by my shield. Okay. Now, because no one has an estate, they've tricked you from birth. We all know about the birth certificate. We're beginning to learn that. So you're beginning about, you were registered at birth, you were abandoned, so you were born out of wedlock. Doesn't matter if your mum and dad was married, doesn't matter, because your mum signed it. You'll notice that the birth notification form will say the word informant, and it also asks to say for the mother's maiden name. If the mother gives the maiden name, she's agreeing she gave birth outside of wedlock. So what does maiden mean? Maiden is an unmarried woman. A fair maiden means she's now reached to the age, and now she's fair to be married. She's now reached the age of consent, and she can now be married. Fair maiden. Once you're married, you're no longer a fair maiden, and all the other men are better back off, because I got this one. You know what I mean? So that's what it means, fair maiden. So when the form says maiden name, and you fill it in and you sign it and all the rest of it, you're saying you gave birth outside of wedlock. The child is born in a state hospital. All state hospitals are foundling hospitals. And you go, what does that mean? It's a place where orphans are abandoned. So the orphan is abandoned in the hospital. You filled out the paperwork. The child is registered. So the state steps in along with the Vatican, and they say, okay, this is an abandoned child. Without an estate, what we will do is we'll set up a trust fund and we will run the estate for them. So unless you have an estate, you are literally considered a child. Doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 93 years old in that courtroom, but you're still considered a child because you are without estate. You are operating within the King's estate, or today it's the UK's estate. You are without estate. Now, because you are without an estate, and they control the estate, they can control everything in your life now. That's why they can make changes. That's why they can turn around and say, this inheritance tax. Because they are the administrators of your estate. And by the way, they tell you this. You all heard of the term Prime Minister. What does that mean? Prime, head, top. Minister is the administrator of your trust fund within the estate. They're telling you. Yeah? And then what do people do? Vote for him. What the hell are you doing? So you're registered to vote. They even say, you know, when you get the form, the register form, they'll say, use black ink. That's your next to the debtor. All right, black ink. You're not the creditor, and you're certainly not the sovereign. Sovereign is purple ink. The creditor is blue. The living, breathing is red, and the debtor is black. So it says, use black ink. Then they'll say, fill out your name, but using capital letters. So you go capital letters. That is referring to your birth certificate corporation. It's a corporation. Then it'll go down and say, put your national insurance number in. That means you've accepted the birth certificate. That means that you are the surety for the debt, the national debt. It'll say, put your surname in. See, the average person has no clue. What do you mean surname? You don't have a surname. You're supposed to have a family name. This passed to you by your father and the grandfather. Family name is the one that your estate is based on. Surname is surety name, means debtor name. It's the name they control. So you put surname in there, in the voting form, and I'm not kidding you. They will even tell you that you are voting within a ward. How many times have you heard that? Voting within a ward. I mean, okay, what does ward mean? When you find yourself in a ward, you are without any authority. It means someone else has a higher authority than you. Prison ward. Have you got any authority in a prison ward? No. Prison warden does. Hospital ward. Do you have any authority in the hospital? No. People are finding that out now because they're trying to leave hospital with a newborn baby and the police are turning up saying you can't leave. Yeah, because you are in a hospital ward. You've got no authority. You're not allowed to leave. So voting ward. You vote in a ward means you have no authority, which means your vote is worthless. How can you vote if you've got no authority? Oh, and also, what do? They tell you, polling station. Go to the polling station. That's an opinion polling station. You can give your opinion all day long. It's got no meaning. But people fall for it, and then they sign. And then what they'll do, just to actually set it off, they'll say, put an X next to the person you want to vote for. And what does X mean? The signature of a simpleton who cannot read. And if you sign as a simpleton, you're saying, I don't know who to vote for. Please, you decide. So you'll fill out on these forms. And the people have no clue that the voting is completely and utterly worthless. And not only that, but if you've registered to vote, what have you also done? You've agreed to the local council because you've registered to vote with them. What does that mean? It means you are now operating within the jurisdiction of that council. What does that mean? You've now agreed to pay the council tax, haven't you? You become a constitutor. Oh, let me tell you this. There's a lot of people getting this wrong. They're saying, we've got a constitution. And you go, what do you mean constitution? I didn't write any constitution. How can I have a constitution? I haven't written one yet. And then they'll quote Bill of Rights and all the rest of it. And then people will say, I've got constitutional rights. And I go, no, you don't. You can't have rights from a constitution. You can have privileges. You see, if someone else wrote that constitution and you agree to follow it, you've become a constitutor. You are now under the authority of that constitution and you're under the rule of the person who wrote it. you've lost the game. If you go into court and say, I've got constitutional rights, the judge is going to laugh his head off. And he's going to know, well, you're simpleton, you're a child, you're without a state, you've got no authority, no word, and I'm going to do whatever I want to you because I'm the administrator of your trust. You've lost the game. So people are falling into this trap. Do not use constitutions because they're not yours, you never wrote it. Magna Carta is another one. Although these things have use, and there is times and a place you can use them, by the way. I'm not saying ignore constitutions or Bill of Rights or all this sort of stuff. There are remedies, you can use them, but you've got to know what you're doing. Magna Carta is another one which people use incorrectly because they say, oh, well, I've got rights because of the Magna Carta. And I go, no, you haven't. Go and read it. The Magna Carta was which means large contract or big contract. Magna Carta, that's what it means, was between the barons and the king, not us, the people. And by the way, when you use the word people on the Magna Carta, that is the chattel owned by the king and the barons. So what it was is the king and the barons were arguing over who had the rights of the people. So when people say, oh, we got our rights from the Magna Carta, I says, you have no clue, you haven't even read it. So don't use the Magna Carta, don't use constitutions. You see, if you create your own estate, you can create your own constitution. Because now you've got your dominion. And as a man, and this isn't sexist in any way, shape or form, but as a man, you have first title of your estate, okay? The reason you have first title of your estate is because you are the protector. You're the one with the shield, you're the one with the sword, all right? The man will say, I will defend my wife and child to the death, and I will die doing so. And because he will make the ultimate sacrifice, that's why he gets first title. Now, a good woman will respect this, and she gets second title of the house, okay? Now, let's talk about house and home. I mentioned this, you might have missed this, but people get confused. They don't understand the terminology. You do not live in a dwelling or domicile or any of this. This is all legal terms. If you live in a dwelling, it makes you a serf and you're living on your master's land. Dwelling. You don't want to have anything to do with that. That, by the way, if you look at council tax, it will say tax on the dwelling. And they go, I don't live in a dwelling. What master is over me? But anyway. So, where do I live? You got to understand what the house means, or the word house. It's not typically the bricks and mortar. The word house refers to family, which refers to the man's family, okay? So that's the family name, okay? That's where the authority comes from, family. It actually comes from an old German Nordic word, I think it's Usan, and it turned over to house. So the house is the man's title. Now that is symbolised by his flag and his coat of arms. Now if he sees a building, like a farm, and he puts his flag up and he puts his coat of arms on the door, he's saying to all of the men, back off. Come in peace with an open hand of peace, not a problem, but I'm warning you, this is my land, there's my flag, there's my shield. So a house is what the man protects. That's different to what a home is. Home is what the woman creates, the wife. A home is about security, comfort, love, all this sort of stuff. A nice, happy place for the children to be brought up in. That's what she does. That's her part of the part. It's a partnership. It's a yin and a yang thing. The man and the woman getting together. Most powerful thing on the planet, by the way. You get a good man and a good woman working together. That's on. You can't defeat that. And by the way, the people who control this corporate system know that. That's why they use this legal system to get rid and separate the man from the woman. Now, the only way that the man and woman can actually be joined correctly is through an affidavit of marriage. Now, you've got to be very careful with marriage. The only two people who can do the marrying would be the man and the woman. You should never involve a third party. Because if you involve a third party, they have the authority over the wedding, and this is very dangerous. In the olden days, it was like a church wedding. It might seem nice, you've got the bells ringing, got the church and all the rest of it. But who is the one doing the proclaiming of the marriage? It's the church, isn't it? The vicar, the father, whatever, says, I now proclaim you married. He's doing the proclaiming. That means the authority of the wedding is on him, not the man and the woman. That means church now can get involved, and this is where the wills come into place. So if you get married, you have a church wedding, and you do a will and last testament, that now means that the church can step in and say, well, we want our slice, you've got to pay us tax, because it's a church wedding, you married the church. Fast forward to today, now most people get married through the state, they have a state marriage. Now this is another thing that people have got to understand. This is like brainwashing. What happens when you want to get married? You apply for a marriage license. And I go, what the hell are you do it. A license means asking permission, doesn't it? Who are you asking permission to get married? As far as I can see, if you're a man and you're going to marry a woman, there's only really two people you should chat with. It's obviously the woman. It's her decision. Oh, by the way, the man gets first title of the house, but the woman has the ultimate decision. Women always do. Us men, we put women up here on a pedestal. They have the ultimate say. They have the highest status than the man. We always put women higher than us anyway. That's why we will die for them. And it's the woman, she has the ultimate decision in the ultimate question, which is what man she chooses to marry. And this is why the man gets down on one knee. He submits. So he submits to the woman. That's the only time he should submit, is when he gets down on one knee and he asks permission from the woman. And that's when the woman, it's her decision, and she says yes. And then the man can get up. Now the man and the woman is equal. The man takes first title. He's now the protector. That's how it works, right? So, going back to license, there should only be two people that should be asked. Now before a man, let's say I was going to marry some woman, before I was going to marry a fair maiden, I would obviously ask the father first, because the father is the protector of his daughter. So I would say to the father, this is my intentions, and he should give me his blessing and go, yes, you're a good man, you've got an estate, you've got resources, you have my blessing. Okay, thank you. Then you ask the woman, she says yes, the marriage goes ahead. No license is required. So a marriage license today is what is called a state marriage, which is actually a corporate merger. This is commerce again. You've just entered into commerce. It's got nothing to do with the living. You are merging your birth certificates. So you're asking the UK corporation, can you merge two birth certificates together? And it's a three-way marriage, like a triangle. It means the UK has full control. And unfortunately, it's very bad for the man, because it actually separates the man. The man is pushed all the way down to the bottom. He's now got third title. So the UK corporation has first title. The wife has second title. The man is all the way down the bottom. He's now got third title. What this means is the man can no longer protect his wife and child. But they will throw back an answer where it looks like it's a yes. So you can even do this with a tax man. And you say, our tax is voluntary. Now that puts them in a very sticky situation. So they'll send you back, and I've actually seen it. They'll say, short version is no. But they'll put the word no in quote marks. And the average person doesn't even spot that. That means they're quoting something. You've got to look at what's written on the paper. So, in a document, if something is round quote marks, it is not part of the original document. It's coming from another source. So the person isn't actually lying, but he's saying another source says no. Now, that again is not lying, because if you contracted to pay the tax, then you have to pay it. So that's how they do it. They use this legalese language to trick you. I'll give you another example. Council tax. And this is an easy one. One thing you've got to spot in any document is you should be looking for your name. If your name is not on it in any way, shape and form, it does not apply to you. Simple. So legislation does not apply to you. But what they will do is they'll use legal titles. And they will hope you accept that legal title. If you accept the legal title, you've contracted, now you pay the tax. So, council tax, and you'll read it, and it'll say, the resident, it's words to this effect, the resident is obligated to pay council tax. What have they just said? You think resident is a word. You think that means, oh, I live in my house, therefore I'm obligated to pay. It's not what they said. What they've done is they've changed the word resident. It's not a word anymore. It's now become a legal title. And what they've done is they've used the word the to change the meaning of resident. And I think a lot of you might even use that. Have you ever done that, where you've emphasized the word the? You do it yourself. Well, these people do the same. So they say the resident. That changes the meaning. What they're now saying is the resident is a legal title. And I go, okay, if it's a legal title, what are the obligations? Well, the resident is somebody who does not own the property, but actually occupies the property to conduct business within commerce. That's what it means. So now I know that, I can say, okay, fair enough. And I can now challenge the council people and say, I'm going to need to see the original contract that I signed where I have agreed to the legal title, the resident. Checkmate. See how this game is played. Now I get it, this is going to be a lot of learning. I've been studying this for 30 years, just for myself, because I wanted to know all this, you know what I mean? And I am willing to share this knowledge with everybody, but I can't do one-to-ones. And this is where the network comes in. This is why we're setting up chess clubs and workshops, online courses. We've got books, we've got free downloads. If you want to learn this stuff, I would say put one side, like one evening a week, and that's going to be your study day, and you start learning commerce, contracts, all this stuff. When you're good at this, you'll have so much fun.
So it feels like a lot of information, and it's probably a good time now to really say why we're here. Now, the Sovereign Project, we're not here for any financial gain.
No.
Okay, yesterday we hosted an event, and it was people could donate if they wanted to, because it helps us with the higher cost of the venue, and it helps us to recuperate our travel costs, because we're going on tour shortly with a number of farming groups that are going to be inviting us along, and they are ticketed events, because there's some really amazing people out there, but they can't do it for free. So if people just donate and help us pay for our fuel costs and venue hires and stuff, then we can get around the country and do this. So the Sovereign Project is not here for any financial gain. We're not asking anything from you. But the reason why I'm here, and again, I'm a property investor. I network with hundreds of property investors across the country, and they're completely unaware of this. As you've seen already, Pete's been in this for 35 years. He's dabbled in the politics as well many, many years ago. But the problem is, well, it's not a problem. We've got the knowledge on law, legal, courts, jurisdiction, and most importantly, the monetary system. We can see what's happening in the future with the money grab, the wealth grab. We understand how the monetary system works. We understand about derivatives and why tax is always going to go up and up and up. They're always going to ask for more and more and more because the debt is out of control. Now the government are on the hook for the debt, not you, but they make you pay for the debt because they ask you to agree to the legal title surname, right, which is surety, debtor of. You've now agreed to pay the legal debt, right, where really it's family name, which we've kind of gone through. So we can see in the near future there's going to be a bigger wealth grab, and it's already happening. So we're trying to protect ourselves now because we can see what's happening. So what we're doing, we're going across the country. We've been promoting this for many years. We've got a huge team now at Sovereign Project. So we've got people that have come from the health sector. We've got people that come from financial services. We've got ex-police, ex-military. We've got a lot of people from a lot of different industries that have now joined the team, and our team is now really big. So for example, someone turned around to me the other day and said, Carl, I'm a leaflet designer. Can I help you? And they design our leaflets for us, right? We've got a big social media team now that has got outreach to 170,000 people that are now giving them lots of free information. Conco, again, has got a great skill set in terms of cameras, editing, etc., etc. So all the events that we're doing, he's going to be filming. Anything that we do, he will mash up, edit it so we can put it out online and share the content. But what we need to do is get this information out. Like I said, we're going on tour. I don't know if you know Mark the Bowler Hat Farmer or Farmers to Action or any other farming groups. We're trying to get in with them and explain this information. Now, I completely understand when you hear this information to begin with, it blows people's minds, right? It's a lot to take in, but it just shows you, if we start to give you the simple information on how we've been deceived and tricked to register everything, we lose ownership, power of attorney. But it's actually, I wouldn't say it's simple, but there's a simple path that we can follow to make sure that we can take it back. Now the legal system, when I speak to the average man on the street, the legal system is a big, powerful beast, right? But when you have the understanding, the mindset, the legal system is actually really weak.
It really is.
It is very weak, and it's got a massive Achilles heel. And when you actually look at it, the people that run the system, they're far and few between. Okay, so this is where we saw an opportunity a couple of months ago when Labour was bringing in the inheritance tax, and we thought, do you know what? We need about 100,000 sovereigns to really implement the strategy. But with the farmers, we don't need 100,000. Because the farmers will follow what the other farmers are doing. So this is why we've been involved with Mark the Bowler Hat Farmer, who's got a big platform. He's a farmer already, and he's got that trust with the farmers. We don't know many farmers, we haven't got that trust. So this is why we're here today, to do a very simple day in the life of we should say, a farmer, on how you run the farm, what you do, how you've had to diversify, the generational shift where you've had the farm, you're passing it down to your daughter then passes it down to the children, right? But that wealth grab is going to mean that in the future, what will your children have? Because they've registered everything. You register your poultry, your cattle, your machinery.